point to rectify the error then and there. I mean, people are obsessed about the title that goes in front of their name, right? Let alone their name. So what talk is there to do about their name? If it says Mr. instead of Doctor, people get offended. Right? What is there to talk about the name then? Right? So clearly, this word that everyone loves, if there's just one word that I'm going to let you hear, that you listen to, chances are you'll say, okay, that last word has to be my name. Because that is what we have come to learn to like and to love. That's what was given to us. And our parents called us by that name, and they doted us, and they fondled us, and they cuddled us, and all the time they said our names out loud. Buddha, this is your name, this is your name. Do you know what your name means? And they always praised us by using our name. Instead of, do you respond to oi and your name in the same way? No, of course not. You know clearly that they're talking to you. Hey, oi, come here. But no, if they said, Siripal, come here, you will go in a more pleasant mind than if called by the word oi. And you know they're talking to you, but oi doesn't make you happy. But say your name and you're happy. So I'm trying to make a point here. I'm not just, this is not just trying to try and crack a joke. I want to make a point here. Of all of the names, right? If we were to make a universal set of all the names that ever existed and exists today, of all of those names, there's one name that always stands out for you. There's one name that always stands out to you, and that name is my name. When you look at a photograph and you know you're in it, where do your eyes go immediately? If it's a photograph of your graduation, or even if it's a wedding, your own wedding picture. You say, the person I love the most in this world is my husband or my wife. But when presented to you with a picture of your wedding, you on the photo, whose face do you look at first? So clearly, it's not your spouse you love the most in this world. Your face is what you like most. You look at you first. There's ego in here, right? But let's not use that word for now because we don't want to complicate things, but I'm just trying to help you grapple this concept of self. So you see, if I were to give you a picture and there are 100 faces, and I tell you, you may be there in this picture, you won't stop until you've done what? Found your face. If it's a school gathering, reunion, and say someone send you some pictures, you know immediately you're going to try and spot your name in there. It's just very natural. See, there's a reason for that. So this is the interesting bit here. Your face is the face that you like to see more than any other face. Your name is the name that you like to hear more than any other name. For Siripala, pasta is the food that he likes to eat more than any other food. Cricket is the game that he likes to watch or play more than any others. What that means is, that is what he believes makes him happy. So your name, when you listen to it, makes you happy more than when you hear somebody else's name. Whatever your favorite food is, you say this is my favorite food because you believe that that's the item of food that makes you happy the most. Is that not true? Doesn't everyone resemble with that? Yeah? Relate to that? So we have a list of things by which we define ourselves, and what we're really saying is, here's a list of things that really delight me. These are the things that make me happy the most of all of the other things in this world. So really, if you were to take all the names in this world and put them into a universal set, you are able to go and pick one name from this set and say, that is me. So in a universal set, you will identify yourself. If you were to write down all the sports there is in this world in one universal set, so there'll be badminton, there'll be cricket, there'll be tennis, there'll be hockey, there'll be swimming, there'll be whatever other sport there is, you will pick cricket from there, your name from the list of names, your favorite fruit from the list of foods, your town from the list of towns, and see, from these universal sets, you create your own subset. And then, once you've collected all of these individual items from each of these sets, you put them all into a subset, and now what do you call that set? Myself. That is myself. All of these individual entities that exist in this universe. Pick out the things that you like the most. Put each of those individual elements into one set, and now you go, that is me. That is me. What is suffering again? What is suffering again? Self. What made? Made in China? Don't talk about China these days. Anything made in China, they don't allow it in this country. So if you're made in China, we should send you back somewhere. What is suffering? Self-made. Okay. Let's see what you're saying there. I'm hoping you're beginning to realize the profoundness of that statement that you just made there. You're saying suffering is self-made. We're trying to figure out what is the self. So now we've come thus far, whereby we're all in agreement that the self is ultimately, for Siripala, it's of all of the towns. So this is, if these were the only towns that existed, right? This is the universal set of towns. This. Siripala picked London. If this is the universal set of food, there are no other foods in this world, right? It's just beef burgers, what was this, chapati? No, chocolates. And pasta, right? Siripala picked pasta. And he picked country homes, right? So you get the idea. If this was the universal set of all the songs there are only 3 songs in this world. I know that'll be the day, eh? See, you need to think, why is it that I said that? Why did I say that? Imagine the day where there are only 3 songs in this world. How does that make you feel? If you are someone who likes to listen to music, if you are someone who likes to listen to CDs and online music and whatever, if you spend your time on Spotify, you will know what I mean when I say, if there are only 3 songs in this world, how might that make you feel? And it sends a shiver down your spine. For those of you who are not addicted to music, you won't know what I'm talking about. You're like, so what's the big deal? But there'll be something that you do like. There'll be something that you do like. And then for me to say, let's take that out of the world, it does not exist hereafter. Now how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? Happy? Then? Unhappy. It makes you feel bad. Which is a form of suffering? Suffering is what made again? Okay. Oh, easy. Let's not rush. I'm just asking you a simple question. I'll just let you connect the dots. In the back of your mind, the dots will start to connect in a moment, if it hasn't already. You're telling me suffering is what made? Self-made. So the ingredients of suffering might be what? Self. If suffering is self-made. So there's a cake, that is flour-made. What is the ingredient of the cake? Flour. There's a pudding made of biscuits. So the pudding is biscuit made. We call it a biscuit pudding. So what are the ingredients of that pudding? Mainly biscuit. So if something is self-made, then the ingredients of that has to be the self. So you're telling me then that suffering is self-made. Now think about what might be the ingredients of suffering. Who here likes to suffer? Nobody. So we are all here to eradicate suffering. Yeah? Did we not talk last week about the 4 noble truths and the 4 non-noble truths? And then we discussed about once you identify suffering, then you've got to identify the cause of suffering. Then you've got to realize once you've eradicated the cause, then suffering ceases to exist. And then there's a path to the eradication of the cause of suffering. The last one is particularly important. The path to the eradication of the cause of suffering. Not eradication of suffering. Eradication for the cause of suffering. Because once you remove the cause, you don't need to worry about the effects. Because this philosophy is based on cause and effect. If you want to extinguish a fire, you don't need to put out the fire. You just need to remove either the oxygen, the air supply, or the flammable object, substance, or you just need to reduce the temperature. So these are the causes you tackle. Why do you throw an old rag over a fire? What does that do? Cuts out the oxygen supply. So you're not actually putting out the fire. What you're doing is you're taking out the oxygen. Take out the cause, you don't need to worry about the effects. So likewise, if you're beginning to realize that suffering is self-made, what you're saying then is the ingredients of suffering is the self. So then, if suffering is self-made, then the cause of suffering is the self, then what do you think you ought to do? What is the third noble truth then, based on this logic? Eradicate the self, and then suffering will have been eradicated. So then the question comes, what is the path to the eradication of the self? So I've actually jumped a few steps further for those of you who can't wait for me to say those words out loud. See, you're using something that is being given by the Buddha to stop vexation to vex. Can you see the irony in that? You know, by the way, I just found in this Tripitaka, there's a fifth noble truth. Yesterday I was reading this sutra. There's a fifth noble truth. I'll tell it to you later. Why? Why? It's the best noble truth there is, and it's the silver bullet. It eradicates suffering like this. All vexation is gone like this, at the flick of a finger. If you realize the fifth noble truth, suffering's gone, just like this. I'll tell it to you right at the end. I'm trying to make a point here. There is no fifth noble truth. But now that I've said there is one, you're all waiting to find out what is the fifth noble truth. The noble truths are for what? To eradicate suffering and vexation. So when I tell you there's one that allows you to eradicate vexation, now you're all vexed about what that fifth one might be. Don't be vexed about the Dhamma, because that is your only salvation. Okay, so let's come back to this. So there's a subset, right, of all the universal sets there are, all the foods there are, all the sports there are, all the people, all the names, all the towns. This is the universal set. Now what Siripala did was he picked individual elements from this universal set and he created his own set. This is a virtual set. It's a virtual set. And this virtual set, you might as well put the name Siripala on it. Although, Siripala is also one of the elements in the set, because that's his name. But if you want to define, see, that's the funny thing also. Siripala is not the self. It's only one of the constituents of the self. But if I ask you, who are you? Don't you all feel that you are the name that you call yourself? You are the name. Do you not feel that way? You are the name that you call yourself, and this is me, this is my body, and this is me. My name, and this is me. I want you to begin to understand, or think at least, and consider how there must be something else than this. We're trying to analyze what is the self, trying to work out what is the self and how is it made up altogether. Siripala is not the self. It's just one of the constituents of the self. So you see, you can't any longer call yourself by your name, because your name is not the self. Your name is only one of the ingredients of the self. Your name is only one of the constituent parts of the self. Would you, when asked, I show you a car, okay? I show you a car, and I say, okay, where's the car? Can you show me the car? Let's say the bonnet has just dropped off, or let's say a buffer has just dropped off, right? The buffer's just dropped off. So the buffer's just dropped off. Now I want you to show me where the car is. Would you, in any sane mind, go and point at the buffer that has just dropped off and say, that's the car? Would you? No. But when it was on the car, you might have pointed at it. But even then, I would say, well, that's just the buffer. Where's the car? Then you say, well, it's just the car. No, that's the buffer. Oh, I see what you're playing at. Then you pointed at the engine, because surely that must be the car, right? No, it's the big part. No, that's the engine. Where's the car? Huh? Oh, then you point at the chassis. No, that's the chassis. Where's the car? Then you point at the door. That's the door. Where's the steering wheel? That's the gear stick. Where's the car? So likewise, would it be fair for us to call ourselves by our name and say, my name is myself? No, because that's just one of the constituent parts of the self. But this self is virtual. Because ultimately, how we created this self was by taking individual elements from the universal sets of colors, of food, of sport, of names, of all of these things that you see on screen, and much more. Of course, this is a very small enumeration of all the things that make up yourself, right? Are these the only things that you like? When you talk about yourself? No, there's countless things. You can talk about the color of your carpet. You can talk about the fact that you have carpets. In my house, we have carpets. That's my carpet. See, and then my carpet has so many strands per square inch. See how many things you can talk about just your carpet? So there's no end to this. You can enumerate this to the nth degree. Till infinity you can enumerate this. There's no end to this. But what you need to understand then is this self is a virtual concept. It's a virtual concept, and the self is also self-made. That's the funny thing. The self is also self-made because it's virtual. It does not exist in real terms. It's self-made. It's constructed. It's formed. It's a mental formation. Do you remember baby Natasha's story? Just trying to draw some references here. Right? Baby Natasha's mother was what? She was crazy. She was mad. This is why she thought she had a child by the name of Natasha. That's why she went to, not a pediatrician, well, though she thought she was going to one, but where was she taken? She was taken to a psychiatrist. She was taken to a psychiatrist because she needed attention. Her mind needed attention because she was crazy. Because in her mind, she was constantly making up this notion, this idea that I have a baby and she's called Natasha, and these are all the things that my baby likes and my baby loves to do. So if you ask her, who is Natasha? Well, Natasha is this child. She came out of me and she's this years of age, and this is what she likes to eat, this is where she lives, this is what she likes to wear. Again, she's giving a list of all the things that she believes baby Natasha likes or baby Natasha has. But ultimately, baby Natasha was a concoction of her own mind. It was not real. It's virtual. See, the self is the same. The self is the same. It's a made-up concept. It's a made-up concept. Where can you go into this universe and actually find Siripal? You may be able to find a body of someone. If you ask that person, can you say me the name that belongs to you? And he'll say, my name is Siripal. Is that Siripal? This is an abstract concept, but I want you to try and understand this. If you walk up to Siripala and ask Siripala, who are you? And he says, I am Siripala. Do you think he's saying the truth? Is he speaking the truth? No, he thinks he's Siripala. He thinks he's Siripala. Actually, he's not Siripala. His name is Siripala. The name that is given to this person is Siripala. So I ask him, is this your hand? Or is this you? Yeah, this is me. And he gives me his hand to shake. Why won't you shake my hand? He asks me. No, but I want to shake Siripala's hand. Oh, I want to shake Siripala. I want to shake this. He says, no, yeah, shake my hand. No, I don't want to shake Siripala's hand. I don't want to shake Siripala's hand. He said, but yeah, this is me. No, it's not you. Are you all double confused? And I want you right at the start. But we don't need to go that far. Okay, let me trace back to as far as I realized you had more heads shaking. Okay, so there was one point I had a lot more heads shaking this way when asked a question, and then when I jumped that point, I just saw. After a little while, I'm just going to see shaking like this. I like you shaking your heads when your eyes are open. Okay? Not so much when your eyes are closed. Okay, let me trace back to where I last saw you shaking your heads with your eyes open. And that was where I said, there's a universal set of all the names, all the types of food, all the sports, all the colors, and so on. And then Siripala, what he did was he picked individual elements from each of these universal sets. And he made up his own set. And that set, he said, is myself. That much I think everyone got. Everyone. Okay? And then we re-emphasized the point. I just repeated what you said, and that was suffering is self-made. See, whenever you ask Siripala, what are some of the things you like, he's gonna spew out these things that you see on the board. Now, what is suffering again? Now, suffering is self-made, yes. What is the cause of suffering, as we have been studying up until this point? Attachment. Attachment. So, what is Siripala's favorite food? Pasta. Which food does he like the most? Pasta. Which food is he attached to the most? I'm asking the same question, just in different words. Pasta. All you have to do is give scheme pasta, okay? Every question I ask, just say pasta. What's your name? Okay. Right? So we just keep thankful he likes pasta, not beef burgers. Okay, so or beef. So okay, so his favorite food is pasta. So what food does he like the most? You're saying is pasta. Which food item is he attached to the most? Pasta. What is the cause of suffering? Attachment. Now, what did you say suffering was? Self-made. Do you see how these two things are one and the same? The things that you like the most are the individual elements you picked from the universal sets, brought them all together and said, that's me, that's me. Ultimately, what you've done is you created suffering. You created your own suffering. This is why I keep saying, you are the architect of your own suffering. Because you have created the self. The self is suffering. I want to give you a moment just for that to think. An arahant does not suffer. To get to a point of non-suffering, what the arahant did, in the process of becoming an arahant, what he did was he followed the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is the last element of the Four Noble Truths. The path to the eradication of the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering being attachment. Attachment was what we did to pick out individual elements from the universal sets to create this new virtual set. Isn't that how you say your favorite food, or Siripala says, is pasta? That's your favorite food. So if whatever food might be for you, it may be hoppers for someone, might be, I don't know, something, spaghetti, pizza, whatever, right? Whatever favorite food you have, what you're saying is, this is the food that I'm attached to the most. Attachment causes suffering. When you make a list of all the things you're attached to, well, that is you. That is you. Right? How else can we define you? If you take out all the things that you say you are attached to, or you say you belong to you, we remove all of them from the face of this earth, you can no longer define yourself. You'll just be a void. You won't have a name, you won't have a town, you won't have a food item, you won't have this, you won't have that, you would have nothing. So you couldn't define yourself without talking about the things that you're attached to. Why do you say my favorite color is red when you talk about myself? What you're saying is, I'm attached to red. That is why whenever you see red, makes you happy. Because attachment causes suffering. How? What things you're attached to are the things you vex about. So attachment causes vexation. Relief from vexation gives you pleasure. And then you say, whenever I see red, I feel happy. So how did that work out? you attached to the color red. And then you picked that color from the set of universal colors and dropped it into your self set. I mean, growing up, I didn't have a favorite color. I remember to this day, I didn't have a favorite color until one day I went to school, right? No, not one day I went to school. One day I was in school, and I'll tell you the day I had to pick a favorite color. I remember this day very vividly because it's a day I was ashamed in front of everyone else in my school. We didn't have that many children in our school. It was a primary school, and I think there were probably about 200 students. Okay, I remember this day very vividly. I had a bad habit when I was a young child, about this Buddha's age. Whenever I sat down to listen to someone speak, I had my mouth open. Like some of you, after a little while, listen to the sermons. But you look down with your mouth open and start drooling. I didn't have the drooling part. I was looking at the person speaking to me, but I had my mouth open. So the principal knew us individually only because we didn't have that many children in the school. So I fondly remember her name was Mrs. Uma. So she called me to the front of the... no, actually she didn't do that. What she did was she asked one of the other teachers to get a sheet of paper. So they brought along a piece of A4 paper, and so she crushed this piece of paper, and she passed it down, all the way down to me. She said, so she gave it to the first person who was sat in the audience, said, "Puta, pass this down." No, she didn't say Puta. This was in another country. She said, "Pass it down, please." And so then they just keep passing. I thought, oh, great, we have a pass the parcel game coming. So I was looking forward to this piece of paper coming to me. And so she was directing it so that it would come and stop with me. But when I got it, and then I was getting ready to pass it to the next person, she said, "You can stop now." Guess what she asked me to do with that piece of paper? Well, let me just tell you this much. That was the last day. I kept my mouth open. At least in her presence. So I'll let you work out what she asked me to do with that piece of paper. Okay? So I was quite upset by what happened. You can imagine. And at the end of the assembly, I tried to take it down. She said, "No, you're going to keep it in your mouth." I think I actually had to keep it in my mouth all the way until lunchtime. I have nothing against her. All she did was she was trying to be good to me in the way that she knew best. Okay, we don't hate our teachers. That's not how we do things here. Certainly, we love and respect and adore our teachers because they are who brought me here ultimately. Okay, so anyway, I was quite upset by what happened, and when I went back home, you can imagine what state of affairs it was when I went back home and Amma came back from work. I had a hissy fit. I was furious about what happened at school, and then she ultimately took me and we went to the school the following day to talk to the headmaster or the headmistress. So only later did I think to myself, darn it, I should have stayed at home. Because here's what happened. After I went and met her, not only did she start to complain about my bad habit of keeping my gob open throughout the assembly, but also, do you know what my mother did? She started to join arms with her, and she started to complain about how untidy I was at home, and how I used to come home from school and wouldn't hang my clothes in the right place. I wouldn't go and put them in the laundry, and how my whole room was just a mess. So I thought I was taking a friend with me to school. Actually, no, what happened was, taking my mother to school with me just made problems worse for me. So anyway, I'm coming to how come I got a favorite color. Then my teacher asked me, the headmistress asked me, "Right, we need to change things now. You are growing up, you can't be like this every day, your mother's complaining, you've got to keep your mother happy." She said, "What is it that we can do so that you can keep your room tidy?" I said, "I don't know, you tell me." She said, "Well, why don't you hang your clothes? Get yourself a cloth hanger." She said, "Do you have a cloth hanger?" I said, "No, madam, I don't have a cloth hanger." That was the only time I was happy with her, because she looked at my mother and said, "See, how can you expect him to hang her clothes, He doesn't have a cloth hanger. What parent would do like that?" I was like, "Yes, tell her." So she asked me, let's get you a cloth hanger. And from today, would you promise me that you'll hang your clothes and I won't again stick paper balls in your mouth? I said, yes, madam, if you won't do that, I will do